Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday Nighter, round three for the month of December. I am Michael Perry, and I am pleased to be joined by National Master OK.
Everyone.
We don't have any player announcements for tonight, but this Saturday at the castle, we have a pretty cool tournament, actually. Um, it's called the Big Bad Spooky Swiss, has kind of a funny name, but it's 5 rounds of game 60 plus 30, so it's a Saturday Sunday tournament. Um, Dan Boj is the TD on that one. But yeah, 3 rounds on Sunday. 3 rounds on Saturday, 2 rounds on Sunday. But kind of a more serious tournament there if you want to get some practice right before the Christmas break. And with that, I'll send it over to OK for the games.
All right. Well, let's get it started. I guess we'll start with board one, which is already done. I mean, okay, Jordan's a very fast player, so expect his games to go pretty quickly, but the results is a bit surprising. We have Eddie winning against Jordan, so that's a bit of an upset. And coming into this round, were they the only undefeateds?
They were, yep, both at 2.
Okay. So Eddie's now in the driver's seat in terms of winning this month's Thursday Nighter. Well, let's take a look at the game. So it starts off as a Karo Khan. And when I was, back in the day, the Karo Khan was thought of as a tamer cousin, more solid cousin of the French, and to be played by old men, and I think in those days, I think Kalvak at his time switched to Karo Khan later in his career. Karpov switched to Karo Khan. I think Smyslov played Karo a bit later in his career. So that was the general thinking. And now it's like all the action-packed players are playing the Karo Khan. So that's an interesting switch in chess fashions. So, and the advance is one of the more topical lines now. Again, another fundamental shift in chess thinking. It used to be thought that, well, this can't be really great for white, that he's allowing black to get his bishop out of the chain and then create an improved French in that the bishop is outside of the chain. And then it turned out that maybe the bishop is more secure inside the chain, as the players of the white pieces found various very aggressive schemes to take advantage of the exposed bishop. And here we have a really interesting approach with this h4. Nice and aggressive, the sort of game that Eddie likes. And Jordan responds with h5 and bishop g5, which is aimed directly at black's development, so you're not going to get e6 in easily.
May I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
So I'm not super well versed in the Karo Khan by any means, but to me, h4 kind of seems like a little bit of a sideline, because I kind of thought that you only play h4 once they play e6 to kind of trap the bishop more.
Yes. h4 is not the most common move here by at least in my understanding. I think knight f3 is the top move, but h4 has become much more, again, yeah, when I was younger, knight f3, maybe, although, yeah, I think the tide started changing probably in the last 15 years, where h4 became more common. But knight f3 had the traditional move here. In general, if black were to go ahead, so after h4, if you were to go ahead and play this, I'm not exactly sure if white is punishing black in any way. Maybe the idea is this.
Yeah, now we trap the bishop. I remember first
Yes.
seeing this ID in a Levy Roseman short, actually.
Yes. Yep. So H4 does have an important function, and so um and in many of these Caro-Kann positions, white is aiming to play H4 anyway, just to gain space and put pressure on the king side. So H4 is logical in that regard. And I believe H5 is the most common response, which creates a different dynamic. So often you'll have H6 played when white is advanced to go to king side. So H5 creates a different dynamic. And one upshot is the G5 square becomes a bit weaker, which then makes bishop G5 make some sense. And now queen B6. And so queen B6 looks reasonable, right? You're counterattacking the against the D pawn and B pawn, and you're now ready to play E6 because the pin is no longer there. But apparently, according to one of our resident experts in this position, um, Black could find himself walking into a well-tuned trap after this bishop D3. And Jordan plays bishop takes D3. There's an argument for taking this guy first, and then if bishop here to try and be clever, then queen takes, and then this guy's going anyway. And now Black has netted some interest for his initial investment, or I guess said more properly, some profit. So instead, he plays queen. Oh, I should mention too that I believe this has been seen before. And then F6 is supposed to be a move to help Black consolidate. And none of this is from my own brain. This is from a person who is much better versed in these lines than I am. I'm happening to have seen this game. So here, I'm sorry, I went too quickly there. So at this point, the D pawn is hanging, and Jordan has a question to answer. Should he capture? Should he continue with his development? And he decides to take the pawn, which seems like a valid approach. I mean, on the face of it. But it turns out this is actually a well-known position. And at the very least, Eddie understood this position and played E6, which is a very deep idea. You're going, my understanding is by playing E6, the development of these guys is going to be rather difficult. Now, okay, there's a problem over here, but White has that practically covered, I guess. After this, so the queen tries to escape, and queen takes is played. I believe bishop e3 can also be tried with a similar position, and then the knight is lost. So there's that. And so this becomes sort of sort of a move order trick, the way Eddie plays it. And so the rook isn't running away, so Eddie wisely continues his development and is actually, if given a chance, looking to get his knights to e5 or g5. And in the meantime, what exactly is Black doing with his development? So he tries to get something else. So he gets a knight out to f6,
And what I
and
already
now
like
knight g.
about this is that like the fact that Eddie's playing something that like a position that Jordan usually wants the other side of. Like Eddie's the one
Mhm.
who's sacrificing the material. I mean, he's down 7 points in material. That's something
Yes,
Jordan usually likes to do himself. So, and he's clearly in book. I guess now he started spending some time because now he has 81 minutes. But I just think it was a really good opening choice from Eddie.
very. And actually, the other part of that equation is the fact that um, for once, Jordan is behind on the clock by a lot. Like, um, if you go here after bishop e3, so which suggests to me that Jordan might not have been familiar with this position because he spent 16 minutes on this move. And then
Yeah.
after this, spends 8 minutes on knight f6. So I think he's now having to work things out over the board, which is very, very dangerous in this kind of position. Knight g5 was played, which is threatening mate on the move. And so how does Jordan take care of that? He gets his knight out. And at the moment, I mean, not that material is that important at this point, but Black is, at least in terms of pieces, Black isn't really ahead by a big material amount, and his king is exposed, and his bishop on f8 and rook on h8 are not part of the story. So Jordan plays e5, which practically has some justification. One way of dealing with a piece blocked behind these pawns is to sacrifice the front pawn so you can play this guy behind it. And I think that's part of the maneuver that Jordan's trying to achieve here. But Eddie focuses on what's most important, which is getting his last piece into the game, last pieces into the game, and that involves castling. So knight g5, and maybe knight g5 is a bit too ambitious. Maybe, although I don't know, is it possible to even escape? Maybe he should continue his operation after castle with e6 so he can get his bishop and rook out. What do you think?
Um, why he played the e6 and e5?
No, I mean, if he played e5, and then in the game he played knight g4, and I'm wondering if it might have been an idea to play e6 here instead, with the idea of getting the bishop out and then hopefully getting the rook into the game.
I definitely prefer that much more because that's the one thing Black really needs to do quickly is get their pieces out. Yeah, I don't quite understand knight g4. Maybe he's just trying to overprotect e5. But when you play e6, you're also just wanting to play bishop d6 and protect e5 that way, and then also protect your
Exactly.
pinned knight on c7. So, yeah, I agree. I think e6 makes a bit more sense.
Because I mean, it's threatening to take the bishop on e3 maybe, but the bishop on e3 isn't going to stay there. It's actually going to escape um, in a beneficial way. And in the meantime, it also gives white a tempo to trap black queen. Because now the black queen is pretty much stuck, and I don't see a way to get her out of there. So right now, the threat is knight c3 is one threat. Which Jordan tries to solve with knight b5, sorry. Then pawn push, chasing the knight away, and now knight a3 becomes an additional threat. And then he takes that way. Ah, okay. So Eddie wants to trap the queen in a different way with bishop c1, and now all of a sudden there's no escape for the queen on a1, just like that. There's still some fighting to be done here though, so and we can trust Jordan's going to do his darndest to make something happen here. So queen a7, g5, I guess trying to spring his h-pawn. Eddie isn't impressed and takes the pawn anyway. So h4, and Eddie's going to bring his knight probably to f3. And also allows the rook to come to b1. So Jordan is, I guess, trying to get the rook to help defend the bishop on c7 by X-ray. And now it's all over. There's nothing going on here. Yeah, that's harsh. That's definitely harsh. So that's an interesting opening idea. I don't play either side of the Caro-Kann usually. I mean, I think I might find myself tempted to get into a panel of Botvinnik when white plays e4, c4 and e4, but generally I'm not playing a regular Caro-Kann, and this idea seems very, very nice. And as you said, it's an interesting role reversal because usually Jordan's the one giving away material to hunt the opponent's king. So, all right, well, that's a very good game by Eddie, I think. I mean, I'm not sure how much of it was prep, but even if it was all prep, it's still very impressive to remember all that and have the courage to play it over the board against such a strong player as Jordan.
He said he was out of book after f takes e6. So he was in book for like the first 10, 11 moves. But I mean, there's not much to criticize from Eddie. He played a great opening, and then even once he was out of book, he was able to navigate it well, and Jordan kind of misplayed it. He obviously wasn't super familiar with the position yet, at least not as familiar with as Eddie, perhaps.
Yes.
And he got his queen stuck in the corner. But yeah, not much to say other than great game from Eddie.
Cool. All right. Well, let's see what's going on. Maybe we should go to the completed games first. So we'll take a look at. Oh, is Miles back on vacation? Back on holidays or something?
Yeah, I just noticed that he must be. That's cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he went out to Carolina for school, I believe, and so um, he's now playing against John Heyer. John Heyer's playing the white pieces, and E45. I know this has a name. I can't remember what it is. Maybe it's not important. Um, this B3 idea. I'm not terribly impressed with it. I think um, it allows black to equalize very, very easily. Then again, um, the previous obsession with getting opening advantages um, isn't as important as it used to be back in the 80s, 90s, maybe back into the 70s too. Now people are happy to just get a position they like and just play. So that said, you don't want to get a bad position out of the opening unless you're used to playing bad positions and like uh, being a provocateur. So out of the opening, it seems as if Miles' position is pretty decent. John's position is not too bad, but he's definitely passively placed compared to Miles, especially the bishop on e2. Probably thought there'd be more to life than what's going on right now for him, but it's not a bad position. And now he's going to try and grab the bishop pair, but at the expense of dropping a pawn, which actually probably makes some sense here. So I don't know if in this position, actually it wouldn't have worked anyway, because the knight can come back to e6. So I was thinking, it was the idea of playing king h8 just a random idea? Was it specifically to prevent queen takes d5 queen d5 check ideas that might be tactically useful? Maybe it's a mixture of both, but after knight a4, which seems strategically important, it drops a pawn and maybe more.
Yeah, this isn't good.
No, I think he had to accept that he was going down the pawn and hope that having the bishop pair is sufficient compensation. So I think he just had to play here
Yeah.
and hope for the best.
Yeah, he just had to play down the pawn and down the two center pawns, which is sad, but
Yes.
it would have been the right decision.
And this is what I was saying about, I don't know whether king h8 was anticipating this sort of line, and then if here, so that after here, then here, but it doesn't really work. So if you imagine the king on g8, it doesn't really work because you just capture here. And even if you could get queen to d5, it's not really threatening anything. So, but I think king h8 probably is good anyway. But now it's just a piece down for nothing. Or no, I'm not. What am I saying? Yeah. It's now just a piece down. So, and a player of Miles' strength, this is going to be fairly easy to convert, even with the Irish triplets.
One thing I found a little odd was, so obviously this king h8 is a little interesting, but I'm a little surprised he didn't play f4, because usually that's an idea in positions like this when one side pushes their f pawn forward and the other side doesn't take it. It's a common idea just to push it and gain more space. And then Miles would have had the famous connect 4, which I mean, that's pretty darn good. Maybe he was worried about like g3, but I think after takes and then h takes g3 is forced.
So
I
you're
mean, they
talking about
don't.
instead of king h8
Yeah.
to play here now, right?
Yes. If king h8, f4, f5, f4. Yeah. And I think.
Hmm.
I mean, usually this is a good idea, and maybe he still was worried about knight a4, but then bishop b6 is probably forced. It would have been interesting. Maybe and then knight takes b6, a takes b6, and g3 is maybe what he was worried about. Now maybe
Potentially,
now maybe g3 comes with more force because black's dark squared bishop is gone, so you might even take with the f pawn.
yes.
So yeah, maybe this wouldn't have been best because you win that dark squared bishop. But just
Yeah.
just a thought, because in some positions, gaining the space right that and getting the connect four is actually a good idea.
And maybe king h8 was sort of a waiting move because f4 wasn't ready, and also tempting white to go into that idea, because it would seem to me like when you have the bishop on c5 and these sort of e4 e5 positions with d6, that knight a4 is often an idea, and so um, and oftentimes what black might look to spend the tempo playing a6 or a5, which he didn't, and so maybe the idea with this is partly to prep for rook g8 after f4, right?
Yeah,
So maybe that's also, and he says, "Oh, I can afford to do it because my bishop is still safe and white doesn't have anything. Let me give white the opportunity to make a bad move."
yeah.
But that king h8 is still going to be part of the overall plan of the f4 g5, f4 h6 g5, and etc. 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 So
I definitely think you're right though that he ultimately played king h8 exactly because of knight a4. Because knight a4 is a move
yes,
you needed to worry about because you don't want to lose the dark square bishop. But once you play king h8, John blundered into it anyways. But yeah,
yes. So of course, this is a very messy position in a way, and I think it's instructive to see how Miles goes about exploiting his advantage. Because it's you have to when you got a material advantage such as this, it's kind of important to have a plan of action, because just tossing your pieces around or trying to force exchanges willy nilly might actually create more chances for the opponent who's behind. So I think it's, even though it should be a win, I think it might be instructive to see how Miles carries things out. So notably, he's not taking a passive approach at all, and it's funny, if the bishop had gone back to, I don't know, let's say we'll go here, he comes here right away, um, as one possibility, and so actually, I think he's lost right away, right?
yeah. He has to play h3 and yeah,
So, which is why John figured he needed to stay back to help defend the king side. But now h4, sorry, h5, and Miles is just going after him. No rest for the wicked. So we have this, and he organized the exchange of a pair of pieces, but also strengthened his position, well, weakened White's king position in the meantime. So now we have queen there and check. And, and yeah, this is just fundamentally good. Black is not forgetting that his other pieces need to join in. The advantage of extra material is you have more forces to use in attack. Well, that's the major advantage. And so keeping them at home isn't going to help. John is playing as actively as he can to create some chances. But unfortunately for him, it looks like there's really isn't that much. I mean, he could try pawn hunting on the queen side, but Miles is setting up for an attack. Is right now threatening bishop takes h3. So queen e3 happens, and then bishop c8. And now is attacking g2. So defends g2, attacks g6, but I think that allows bishop h3 now. Yes, it does. So so he's moving a pawn there anyway. John is playing pretty enterprising. I mean, considering the circumstances, he's doing his best to create as much problem for black as possible. I think he's come to the end of the road because there are no more useful looking checks, and at the moment, I guess bishop f3 is a threat. Maybe, unfortunately, this is too slow because rook takes g7 is not check. Actually, what am I doing? I should pay attention to what the opponent is giving, because this is already moved to mate, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Like, oh, at first I'm like, maybe he resigned prematurely because bishop f3, there's rook e3. But exactly, if bishop f3, rook e3, you're really not. You can just take on f3 with your rook.
Yes.
And there's queen c1 mate. So yeah.
So yeah, this is that was a tricky one by Miles. Let's see, we have Maxwell's Smigel versus Juan Perez, and Kyoko Piano. So I'm not going through the details here, partly because I don't think I'm equipped to, but I'll say that both sides are implementing common maneuvers in this kind of position. Actually, maybe I'll go back a bit because I might learn something while I'm discussing it. So it used to be that bishop b5 was the king of king pawn openings, and then in the last maybe 6-7 years, maybe a bit longer, the top players started looking at bishop c4 more. I think part of the problem for white was needing to find solutions to the Berlin and the Marshall. And so with players like Aronian and Michael Adams making the Marshall almost unbeatable, and then of course Kramnik and other players making the Berlin wall a major weapon, people started looking at bishop c4 more. And back in the day, bishop c4 was played in the romantic way. You know, get your pieces out, maybe stack a pawn or three, and then try to make the king. And folks are looking at this d3, and they found out that you would often get positions similar to Louis Lopez without allowing black to get some of the more annoying lines in. And all of a sudden, people now started looking at all these different subtleties in move order that both players had at their disposal, and became a rich battleground again. And so I think nowadays you're probably seeing more bishop c4 than bishop e5, but
Yeah, it's what I play, and not for any of those reasons. I'm just like, oh, bishop c4, let's do it. I think it was because of a course I saw
okay.
by a top grandmaster, and I'm like, okay, he plays this, so I'm gonna play it. I guess that was technically how I initially started playing bishop c4. But yeah, I mean, nowadays both moves are equally playable, and um, yeah,
Yeah. It's funny how often, we lesser lights will stumble into um, a huge conversation that's been going on for many years without having any idea about it. And then we're just playing these moves that seem natural to us, but that took years for the best players to come up with.
yeah.
So here the position looks like it's becoming a bit difficult for Maxwell. Um, I mean, okay, it's not like he has no reason to lose just yet, but it just seems like his opponent is getting his pieces into nice squares, but maybe that's all he'll get to do is look at nice squares but not be able to do anything. And in fact, at this moment, d4, which follows the old principle of countering play on the wing, in this case, the king side, by play in the center. More importantly, or more concretely, he's blocking the bishop from attacking his king and making this guy maybe a little bit less stable. So let's see how things go from here. Bishop e3, so he gets his bishop into the game, and maybe the pawn on e4 is a little bit more tender, but the bishop on c2, the bishop on b3 might be able to come back to c2, or the queen could take up a position on the diagonal if need be. Anyway, f5 isn't really a threat because the king's still on g8. And Black continues with his aggressive development, and White is playing fairly calmly, all things considered, with all these pieces staring at his king.
I think
And
it would
now
have
we
been
have
maybe worth looking at, and maybe he did, but just taking on e5 instead of playing knight h2, and then
yes,
after takes e5, bishop takes a7, you kind of get Black's rook out of position.
and not only that, I think it also allows for either rook e3 to help shore up the knight, or even knight g3. Although, because one of the problems is this rook might come over here
That's true, yeah.
and add to the attack. So yeah, this guy will be misplaced, but we're also giving a road for this rook to come in.
And if the queen leaves the d1 h5 diagonal, then knight takes h3 wins a pawn. So
Yes.
maybe this is secretly just bad.
Yeah, it seems like somehow Black has played very purposeful, positionally aggressive moves.
Yeah, but
Getting
that's
his
partly
pieces.
because Maxwell's played pretty slowly. Usually White just plays d4 right away, but he played d3 on what was that move 5. So which is fine, but
Yes.
if you don't play this passively, prepare for Black to do exactly what he did and position his knights on the king side and move his queen in, and always be looking at either bishop takes h3 or knight takes h3. So you just gotta Gotta be prepared for that.
Yes. And so now he plays here to avoid the one tactic, but then has to deal with this double attack. So he's attacking both e4 and g2, and it's not clear how he deals with both threats. So bishop g4, sorry, knight g4 was played, and an interesting moment. I think Juan didn't want to leave empty-handed, and so takes on e4, which makes some sense. The problem is he's walking directly into a potential discovery. Oh, this is actually kind of sweet. so queen, now is this working? This knight takes e5 idea. Is it working? I guess we'll find out. Knight takes e5, which is based on LPDO, loose pieces drop off. And oh, this is okay. I think we're about to walk into a puzzle rush moment. So queen takes, and Juan decides to capture the pawn, and I think he's hoping to introduce his bishop into the game, which positionally is not a bad idea, but tactically could have issues. At the moment, it's not an issue because the queen's on f4, and now it becomes an issue. And for those who are watching, if you haven't seen it already, this is a nice time to stop the broadcast and think about the tactic that's in this position. It's very sweet. So black is threatening queen takes f2. But the good thing is it's white to move right now. And white decides to take advantage of a pin in an interesting way. Queen takes f7. Bang. Crash. Wallop, as the cartoons would go back in the day. So the key is that after rook takes f7, there's actually a back rank weakness, which Maxwell, that's a very nice finish. Thank you, sir. That brightened the evening. And by the way, he can't afford to just play king here because this is also back rank mate. So no, that's a very nice finish. In some ways, it feels like it was against the run of play, but the play wasn't really determined yet. And black did have the more aggressive position, but after the tactic where the queen suddenly finds itself activated, black needs to be on guard. And I think maybe, as I said, pawn takes pawn itself isn't bad, but this might be a moment to consider something decidedly unsexy, but probably important, like maybe bishop f5.
Yeah. But I would even go back. Go ahead.
Or maybe bishop d7, but help protect the back rank. Let me see. So yeah, you mean like going back here, maybe?
No, even going back further, I thought that knight f6 for Ron might have been better on move. What would this have been? On move 15 when he played queen takes e4. So on move 15, I thought just maybe bringing the knight back, and this is what I was thinking. Let's play knight f6, and then we're putting added pressure on this knight. So now now white has to do something. And yes, he can take the knight with check. That's important that it's check. Otherwise, black would just be mating on g2. But I didn't see what was happening after knight f6, at least for white. So I thought this might have been a better try than queen takes e4.
Yeah, queen takes e4 seemed a bit risky to me, because that's what I was making a comment about how Wad didn't want to leave empty-handed, and so figured he'd play queen takes e4, because I was looking at maybe bishop takes g4, knight takes f6, as you mentioned, other moves and not queen takes e4, because it just seemed like you always need to be careful when you go into the tactical realm. You have to make sure you're calculating every single thing and considering all kinds of accidents occurring. And so knight f6 has the advantage of keeping things under better control in some ways. However, it's also possible that maybe in this position,
I think what might be best is just to take on f6. I think if takes e5, knight takes g4, and then I think white has to take back on g4. Because if they play bishop takes f4, I mean, that just looks... I mean, there's bishop takes f2, there's knight takes f2. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. If bishop takes a7, there's all sorts of mating ideas. So yeah, let's take that guy. But then this starts to look good for black. Because white's only up a pawn here. No, it's actually equal material. And if f3, there's like bishop h3, threatening mate. Sacking a piece and threatening mate. So I think white, if knight f6 for black, it's probably best for white just to take the knight. And then if takes f6, because I want to keep the queen eyeing the g file, then white plays knight g3. And maybe this isn't best for white, for black to play knight f6, but at least, black has a game. They're still putting pressure on the king side. h3 is not capturable, but still a target. Unfortunately, h5 isn't playable because bishop takes f4 and then queen takes h5, or knight takes h5 actually. But yeah, I mean, you still have a game.
But actually, okay, yeah, there's knight f4 too after all that business. So after knight takes h5, the knight takes f4, preventing mate and attacking the bishop on h3. So okay, yeah, I think you're right that maybe knight takes maybe black has to admit that his position is more aggressive, but he's not winning enough. Maybe, I'm not sure that even sounds right, but it seems as if queen e4 was taking on a lot. That said, if he doesn't blunder with bishop, with queen takes d4, is this position holdable? So for example, if he plays, because he has the bishop pair, right? And
yeah, so this position is completely fine for black too. So both are okay.
If he plays g6, for example, that removes the back rank issues right away, and then maybe plays bishop f4, bishop f5 later, or something like that. And yeah, I don't think black's chances are worse than white's here.
No.
In fact, they're probably, funny enough, they're probably a bit better because of the bishop pair. If you can find a good square for that bishop, is the thing though, the one on c8. And then if he does, then white has the problem of the isolated queen pawn without necessarily having great play. But yeah, but then if he had played this, then we wouldn't have had the joy of seeing this combination happen. So I guess thanks to both players for putting this on the board. Let me see. We've got Brendan Foote versus Roger Hale, and so Roger's prepared to defend with Jagorin against the Queen's Gambit, and Brendan plays G3, which is a crafty way of playing against these knight C6 ideas. So you delay playing C4 until you're better prepared for it. So then black doesn't have his automatic counterplay against a D4 pawn. And it can sometimes be troublesome. Now Roger decides to take the bull by the horns and just play in gambit style here. I'm not sure if this is prep on his part, but he seems to be playing pretty quickly. So bishop c5, so he gets his bishop to attack the pawn on f2, which are already, if white is forced to play e3, would be some sort of compensation. And h6. Now I don't know this position, but it would seem like if you're gambiting a pawn, playing h6, unless it's absolutely necessary, seems like a bit slow. No?
Yeah, I mean, usually when you give up that e pawn for black, you're playing either queen e7 or knight g7, knight g6, and then taking back right away. So unfortunately, queen e7 doesn't work because then you hang your d pawn. So yeah, this might be a bit too slow for him.
Or maybe even f6. I mean, this is not. I mean, I don't know that I believe in black's concept here, but f6 challenging the e pawn, and if white plays pawn takes, then at least the knight is developed to its natural square, and he gets to enjoy half open f file in addition to the half open e file, which might help in his attack against f2 or whatnot. So maybe f6 might be a better pawn move than f6. Yeah, so I'm not okay, so no, yeah.
He never got his knight out, so it's bad things could happen.
Yes.
No more bad things.
Yikes. All right, so Roger ended up in a pretty dangerous position there, and Brendan was able to convert his. It was this. Brendan actually had better development in addition to having the extra pawn, and just to go back here, e5 just seems black's position isn't ready for this. I don't think. I don't know if it's been played before. It just feels e5 just feels. If you're going to play e5, then maybe you're following up with an early f6 because you have to open up the position to take advantage of any development advantage you're going to create. And so h6 just seems to miss the mark. And it turned out that in order to get the knight out anyway, he had to resort to f6. And this is a nice displacement tactic. You're trying to overwork the bishop. Roger tries to respond with a counterattack of his own, but unfortunately, um, when white captures on d7, black has to respond because the queen's attacked, and the queen doesn't have any good counterattacking squares, and he can't both save his queen and keep the enemy knight out of c6. So that we get this, and now Brendan is going to show us his technique. So this is an important move. c4. Again, you have a material advantage, you have to use it. And when the extra pieces are long range pieces, like in this case, queen versus nothing, open position, open lines are important, and c4 is helping to open up some line. Something is going to open up here, either the c line or the d line. Actually, this would have been kind of cute, with the understanding that if he tries for this, then he's mating him. But this works as well. And checkmate. So, yeah, Roger's experiment with e5. I think, again, I don't know if it's a known thing, but it would seem to me that to play the spirit of such a pawn sack in the opening, you'd have to look at opening lines in the center, and if you can, avoid playing defensive moves, at least early in the game, if you're playing in Gambit style. So our next game is Nainika Tudika versus Srijan Vaidyanathan. And wow, normal opening, Grunfeld. Okay, so this is slightly different. So typically in the Grunfeld, in this specific position, if knight f3 is being played at c5, bishop e2 looks interesting. Bishop e3 is a bit more flexible place to put the bishop, defending the d pawn, and able to go to g5 or h6 later if need be. Bishop e2 is not losing anything yet, but just doesn't seem like the best positioning for the bishop. And now black plays a move that's normal for the Grunfeld with this queen a5. Huh, this is very interesting, this position. So I would think
when I used to play d4, I would sometimes get Grunfelds, and yeah, I would always play bishop e3 as well. I never once played bishop b2.
Yeah, bishop e2 is a new one for me. I'm wondering if black can get away with this, with the idea of spoiling white's pawn structure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because the blitzkrieg attack with this isn't working. It just so happens that the queen can go sideways. So then if he has to play knight d4, then the bishop here looks even more dumb behind this pawn. And now you castle, and then black is going to get his Grunfeld play plus some. Okay, let's see. He played bishop g4, which is a common move in the Grunfeld, putting indirect pressure on the center. And white castled. And black castles. And queen d3. And the difference now is c takes d4. If it were desirable, c takes d4 is the c pawn is no longer pinned, so he will be able to capture back with c takes d4 and then have that nice e4 d4 double. Now after here, so white has his center pawns where he wants them, but they're also, this is why the Grunfeld can be attractive to play for black. Is white has this visually appealing pawn center, and it's a very dynamic fight. If white can get his pawns moving, black's in trouble. If white can't get his pawns moving, then white might find himself constantly defending those pawns and dealing with all sort of sniper fire. So we get this here, and now we see black is trying to use tactics to put pressure on white's position, but then white has his own threat, which is if black used rook b1 to indirectly defend his pawn, because now there's this discovery. So black goes back, queen a5, which does leave this guy a bit tender. And the pawns move forward. So now we have d5. And already white's position seems to have good things going for it. A lot of good things, actually. So if black plays bishop takes, then among other things, I suppose queen takes is possible, which prevents the knight from coming here. And this pawn's hanging. And so if black decides he needs to defend the pawn, then he takes his knight back here. And this just appears depressing.
Yeah. And even we could take on c6 if we wanted to and go into the opposite code bishop endgame.
Yes. And actually this would be even this is even better. This is even better, because not only do you get the opposite color bishop, you also get a passed pawn on b7 to boot. Right?
Yeah.
Because the bishop's going to maybe run back. And then, yeah, I think you go here. And now you can combine that. Maybe, I don't know, is rook b7 even better? Maybe rook b7 is better.
Maybe. I wonder if there's some merit to, the promotion square being on a light square now.
Yes, because it just occurred to me, after the pawn goes here, then the blockade square is the dark square, and our bishop's on light square, so our bishop will be able to help in dislodging whatever sits on b8 or is covering b8. But if we keep the pawn on c6, now the promotion square is a light square, and our bishop can contribute. So already, bishop a6 becomes a thing, if allowed. So say if he tries to deal with this, then we go bishop a6, and now we can probably start working on promoting our pawn. But okay, let's see. So 98 happened, Bishop takes, and queen check. So now we transpose to a position we had looked at earlier. King g8, queen here, which looks aggressive, but e6 might be possible, just because of the pin. Srijan decides to counterattack against the bishop.
I mean, that's okay. My instinct was rook fc1, but
Yeah, rook fc1, getting another piece involved seems to me a bit more, a bit more to the point. And although maybe he saw that e6 was coming and didn't want to allow it, and instead he wants to make room for what I thought was the plan to begin with, which was to, so back here, here after queen check, I thought maybe e5 was next. And then look at maybe playing d6 and bring a rook in, and if the knight is staying on d8, it's messing up black's coordination big time. And so we can keep everything bottled up. I think we're doing okay. But queen e5 was played, and yeah, I think maybe e6 might be a thing at some point. But after rook here and queen here, now e6 is probably not as good, because we can capture on e6 and the knight finds itself overworked, and then if he has to play pawn takes pawn, then his king position's weakened. So Srishan plays queen a4, and b5 happens, which seems like a pawn given up for nothing. Ah, okay. Got it. So he's working on the back rank. Not bad.
wait. What if we just take the rook with the queen? We get 2 rooks for the queen, right? If queen takes b5.
Queen takes b5.
Yeah. I mean, this is also somewhat interesting. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
our pieces are still too passive, but 2 rooks for the queen. But I guess they have no. This isn't as good as the game, but worth a look.
Yeah, it's clever, but it just, his position feels artificial. It's like the tactics are working for the moment, but once the tactics are gone, then he's going to be left with a really sad knight on d8, which is blocking communication between the two wings. And after rook b1, I don't know what is going on for black's queen. The a pawn is probably going next. Yeah. And so Nanika takes with that, which forces a decision on the part of, oh, that's cruel.
Hmm.
Tries to counter, but okay. And now, as long as Nanika's careful, this one should be in the bag. That's a nice touch. Taking advantage of the pin against the queen to promote a pawn, or at least threaten to promote the pawn. So yeah, I think it's interesting trying to let's pinpoint the exact moment Srijan went wrong. Because this bishop b2 seemed very unstereotyped. Maybe bishop g4 is a bit automatic. I still like c takes d4 there. Get something concrete out of the awkward position. If the bishop was on e3, it would be a different issue. But yeah, I think c takes d4 might be a thing here. After bishop g4, and here, and queen takes, and maybe here, black shouldn't exchange off on d4 immediately. Maybe. The point being that he can continue his development with tempi, and white has to keep on dealing with the threats. But the difference between this and when you exchange off the center pawns is that by exchanging off the center pawns, you make the position better for the bishops, right? Because they're opening things up and allow white to improve his piece coordination. As it is right now, say if he goes here, now you're removing the bishop pair, and this is still an issue for white. And actually, maybe you don't even. So let's say here happens. Maybe even play a6.
Yeah, no, this is definitely preferable to the game. But I agree. I go back to what you said. I think, I mean, it's the Grunfeld. You live or die by the center. So if you're not, I mean, the whole point of c5 is to threaten and just kind of poke and prod at white's big center. And if you don't play e5 and you've played c5, you're probably going to want to take on d4. But time it right. And he never really timed it right, and white ended up using that deep past d pawn to and the space advantage to kind of immobilize black's pieces, specifically the knight.
And this is maybe to put it in concrete terms. So I understand Srijan's motivation. He wanted to get this queen before double attack in. But if we go back to first principles, our goal in the opening is to get our pieces into play, right? And so he's moving his queen another time. Yes, for a tactical benefit, but it's not one of black's advantages in the Grunfeld is that he gets his pieces developed really quickly and is putting pressure against white. But he's usually having a bit of a development advantage, and in this case, he doesn't. And the c takes d4 at that moment, I think, might have made things worse. And the queen b4 might have been what. Now, d5 has more force because the bishop on b2 can now see the e5 square more clearly after the pawn exchange. So, and then so it has to waste the tempo with that, and now d5 happens, and yeah, it just went downhill. It felt like from here, and so Danica played a really good game after this point. I think once the knight on d8, once the knight had to go back to d8, Danica took advantage of the possibilities available and finished nicely. So let's go. I think we have Robert Donahue. We haven't seen his game yet.
A draw
And
in Robert's game. This has to be like the first time in years, maybe. I don't remember the last time Robert drew a game.
it's funny. One of the more recent games I played against Robert, I believe, was in this line, and it ended in a draw. This was, I think, sometime last year, maybe. I didn't play it the way Matthew played it here, but I believe, yeah, he played this E4 C4 thing, and after a lot of adventures, it ended in a draw. So maybe he's going to choose something else to play, so as not to be burdened with draws in the future. Okay, this is definitely a Robert spin on this position. Um, I'm curious, is B6 working here? And for the record, Queen because then he gets to develop another piece with tempo, but then this happens and this happens and this happens. Oh, and yeah, and then he can play here. Although, if he does that, then this might be an issue. But then he has this. I don't know. Maybe I'm analyzing the garbage here. But I think that's the reason why Robert felt he could just play C5. And that's knight 5 seems reasonable. I'm just wondering if it was possible to play, if there was any advantage to playing b6, hoping to open up a line on the queen side.
I'm not sure because I think C6 it was kind of forced.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at is c6,
Like
and
knight
then we
C5.
have knight here, knight c5. Oh, there's b4.
Well, there's queen A3, so
Yeah, so this isn't trivial. Because then he can probably get b5 and it has a protected pass block. Okay, so maybe b6 is just a crazy idea.
no, I think it's still interesting, but
So Matthew is playing fundamentally decent chess here. He's just getting his pieces developed. And there's an argument maybe for knight. I mean, go against all the rules we're talking about development here, and going for that might be a thing. But you always have to, when you're playing this, especially against someone like Robert, you always have to consider, well, what would he play so as to just give up that exchange? Because that's what Robert is probably thinking. And I don't know that White could give up the exchange with profit here, but that would be one thing to consider. So
yeah,
b6.
it's probably not worth it because like bishop E3, and then if knight takes E3, takes E3, and then even though it damaged our structure, then we have the open D file for a rook, and black still needs to get the bishop out. So I think Matthew probably did right not playing knight E4.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to. He's already a pawn up, and White hasn't shown any real compensation. And so do what you need to do, which is get the other pieces into the game. H4 looks like desperation to me. Doesn't seem like it's really doing anything. Bishop A6. Now, in general, I'm partial to to bishop a6. It features a lot in my French games as black. I don't know. The only downsides to it is the knight looks really nice on c5. And now you have to take a move to get it back to c5. But on the other hand, you no longer have to deal with the bishop pair. And you're opening up the c file for your rook. So h5
Yeah,
happens. Yeah.
I think, yeah, like either case, black's still winning because they're up a pawn, but I preferred bishop b7 too, because then not only,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, is your knight in a better square where it really can't be provoked, but also, I mean, your bishop on b7 is just a killer.
Yes.
It's just a good piece. So maybe,
Yes.
and this might not have been the reason, but maybe Matthew's thinking, I'm up a pawn, and general rule tells me trade pieces, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you do need to increase your advantage by just playing the moves that got you, that enabled you to win a pawn in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, after bishop b7, I'm just loving it for black here. And now that you have bishop b7, you could probably go on adventures like knight e4, etc., rook ac8, rook fd8, and as if you didn't win a pawn. So you play these positions as if it's material even, playing good, solid moves, and then white is the one who's thinking about the pawn. Well, since it's Robert probably doesn't care that it's down a pawn. But most normal players of the white pieces would be saying, oh, I'm down a pawn. I can't let this get to an endgame. I have to find play. And the ideas here with h4, h5 probably shouldn't work, but then um, so like here, I'm actually getting a bit scared for Robert's position here. I'm wondering if
I mean,
I'm wondering if this
a5 is
is
a lovely
working,
move. Just,
or is that too much
oh yeah,
material he's given up?
oh yeah, that is just working. Duh, I was looking at that, but for some reason yeah, that works. Oh wait, no wait, that doesn't work. Never
It
mind.
doesn't work. It doesn't work. I said this looked too good to be true. Um,
Oh boy.
too good to be true. But yeah, those. So that kind of discovery needs to be considered, though. So um, and maybe just maybe you play knight here.
You can, but I like keeping all the pieces on. I think the more pieces,
Mm-hmm.
the better. And like a5, what he plays, just fixing that
The
weakness
pawn
on
weakness.
a4, and you're
Yes.
eventually going to win either a4 or b3, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
fairly
Knight
straightforward.
c5. Knight c5 attacking that a pawn is going to make Robert hurt. So yeah, yeah. A5 just methodical, quiet, getting the job done, kick the knight out. Although this does have the disadvantage of giving g6 to the knight, but then after king f7, maybe the knight's just looking pretty but doing nothing on that square.
King is an active piece in the endgame, but I wouldn't call this an endgame. I mean, there's still two major pieces and two minor pieces.
Quite right. And so he exchanges off the knight and a pair of rooks. Okay, that's interesting. A nice Zwischenzug. And so okay, so we've got to an interesting endgame that appears to be. Oh, I don't like that. I think the king should go to f7. I mean, normally you want to centralize the king, etc., etc., but the knight on c5 could be helping to support e4 and f5, and then you use the king to protect. Oh, but then if you do e4 and f5, that opens up the line to g7 for the bishop. So maybe Matthew's idea isn't too off the mark. Because again, you're looking for how exactly am I going to take advantage of my assets. In this case, Black's assets include probably having the more flexible minor piece, being a pawn up. They both have active rooks. White's has potential targets on h5 and a4. Black has targets on b6 and g7 in terms of pawn targets. And so this would be a moment, if you had enough time, that you'll spend maybe 10 minutes to work out the contours of your plan going forward. So, and it's possible that maybe Matthew thought, I'm not going to do a plan with where I'm moving those center pawns, because those center pawns, well, e5 and f6, are keeping that bishop miserable. So I'm going to create a plan, maybe with knight f4, maybe with knight g5, but my knight's more flexible, so I should be able to use it for other things while the bishop is on c3 as a tall pawn. So let's see how this goes.
I mean, yeah, just look at this. This is completely transformed. Like 10 moves ago, Black was really cooking. Now they're kind of losing the thread.
Yep. And now the bishop's alive. And now the pawn on g7 might become an issue. And
Thanks
I think
to Robert's h4, h5.
This is crazy. So the knight has to be careful, because if it goes too far, then this crooked connect 4 might not be long for the world, right? After the bishop gets to f8. So the knight has to hang around so it can quickly jump to either f5 or e6. And now I'm beginning to understand the contours of how Robert was able to, well, he's potentially able to achieve a draw. Nice. So all that stuff I said about having the more flexible minor piece only meant something when the bishop was bottled up. Now that the bishop has been activated, Matt has to be very careful. Nice. That's a nice touch by Robert. So rather than go to capture the g7 pawn immediately, he first asks Matt to place his king on a square that would not be in the center. He has to stick around to defend his knight on c7, which means that potentially, well, king c6 might have had something going for it, I guess, but then the king is further away from the king side. So it's a difficult choice. And he chose d7, which means that maybe white's king can get to d5 at some point if the knight moves. Yeah, now it's seeming like things have turned around completely. Because guess who has the passed pawn? Oh, wait a second. Did he just blunder a pawn? Yes, he did.
Hmm.
So, because I was going to say, I personally would have been playing here. I like putting a lasso around knights in the endgame like this, so they don't kick you in the head, even by accident. So you play king d4, just look up what squares is going to cover them, and then um, when he didn't, that allowed for this. So now we're
Yeah.
material equal, and it's still a fight because that pawn on h5 can be a dangerous criminal, but we also need to remember that Robert has a pass. Oh, sorry, Matthew has a passed pawn on e4.
Wait. Oh, okay. I was looking at E3 and sacking the knight, but bishop H4 comes back in time.
This is crazy. It's hard to believe that Black escaped this somehow.
And that Robert still has 116 minutes.
Well, yeah, that's
Normal.
that's a whole different thing. Um, so how did this go? Queen f6, Queen c8. Yeah, it seems as if he's just losing a piece. Okay, it's still dangerous for white in terms of avoiding the perpetual, and he can't afford to exchange off queens because the bishop alone can't checkmate, and so that would be a draw.
It's just an endgame you never see. But I think that
Yes,
yeah, it is just even at the top gym level, I think it's just I mean I guess it depends on the position, but as long as the king can't escape the checks.
is queen d4 working? No, no. Seems as if, I mean, maybe there's a win here, but it'll be like a gargantuan project to prove it.
Yeah, I think this is just even at the top level, this is just a draw because you
Yeah.
need
Oh,
it's just
now it's done.
yeah,
Now it's done.
impossible to make progress without either getting perpetual or just trading queens. But never blunder or skewer. Just watch your queen
Yes.
on the dark squares.
I mean, I have to say, I do have to commend Matthew because after that turnaround, it's very easy to just mentally give up. And he's making sure not to allow Robert any funny business. Um, and so well, I think a draw ended up being a fair result there. No, we haven't seen Jacob's game, so let's take a look at that. And at some point, we're going to see Dane's game, but all the other games finished so quickly. Trying to do the completed games. So, all right, let's go to Myron versus Norman. Myron versus um, Jacob Picus, and okay. So of course Norman goes for his normal f4 d4 setup. And he achieves his post up. So things are going according to his normal plan. So now Jacob is going to try to uproot the knight or change the pawn structure in a way he hopes is favorable. So he plays f6, and after rook 6 f6, now we have a change in the contours. Black has the center kind of under control. He also has knight to bishop versus the bishop pair, but this isn't the position isn't open enough for the bishop pair to claim an advantage yet. And black potentially has a minority attack to play for on the queen side with b5, b4, that kind of business. So let's see how things develop. And this is a nice idea by Jacob. So he figures his bishop is a dark square bishop, and to allow that bishop have more available squares, he takes his pawn, which is on a dark square, puts on a light square, which also neutralizes the otherwise unchallenged light square bishop that white has. And but wait, there's more. The knight can now potentially go here and there. And the knight on e4 is probably as strong as any of the white pieces, maybe besides the queen. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but that'll be a really great square for the knight.
And then black gets to choose what structure he wants. He can either take back with the D or the F pawn. Probably don't take back with the... I mean, we don't even know. So it's just nice to have the option.
Exactly. So already, again, theoretically, the books will say, oh, he has a bishop pair. But if the knight can find himself a really nice outpost and keep the position under control where things aren't wide open and the play is centered in a confined area, then the possessor of the knight and bishop versus the bishop pair shouldn't have much to fear. So queen b6, which I suspect it's a nice move. He's attacking b2, but I think another motivation for playing queen b6 is he prophylactically avoids the pin down this diagonal with tempo. And you'll see what I mean next. So queen e2 happens to defend b2, and now knight f6. And a move or two before, this would have been pinning the knight to the queen, meaning that the knight wouldn't get to e4. But now the knight gets to e4 because there's no pin. And so Norman doesn't even want to tolerate the knight on that square for more than a move. And Jacob captures with the f pawn, half opening the f file, and immediately putting pressure on the f4 pawn. And already I'm really liking, even more so, black's position. And that's an interesting maneuver, an interesting repositioning. So he's going to likely bring his rook to double his rooks. It's an interesting way of doubling the rooks. It's very efficient. So doubling the rooks is possible, but he could also be setting himself for the minority attack that I mentioned earlier, which, there we go, b5. And so I'm calling it minority attack because black is using 2 pawns to attack 3 pawns and hopes to end up with white giving up some sort of concession, maybe having 2 isolated split pawns or a backward pawn on a half-open file. You can see this sort of thing happen in Queen's Gambit Declined, where white is the one doing the minority attack. And then I think the most common for the black side is in the Caro-Kann, especially the Caro-Kann exchange variation, where you have the same sort of pawn constellation. So Jacob is playing for that minority attack, and yeah, this is nice. That let's let me go back if you don't mind, Michael. I want to revel in this two-step here. That was a very nice. I don't know why it tickles me this repositioning of his queen and rook to allow for this to happen.
I like it too. Yeah, he has the time. The center's closed, which is his doing.
Yes.
So he has the time to do a minority attack, which I think in this position is called for because white's not threatening too much. And if you want to win, there's really no other avenue. I don't think that f4 pawn was going to be enough of a weakness, so you kind of have to go for this.
Now I think in this position, I don't know, but maybe queen. Well, maybe it doesn't matter. So after queen d7, c4 is a possibility to avoid the worst of it, maybe. Trying to change the pawn structure, which is one of the defender's ideas in these minority attack positions, and then leaving this rook looking kind of silly behind this pawn. And if white is allowed, he'll play c5 next. And it's unclear. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, but I think black can take and then play rook c8. So take c4, queen takes c4, rook c8, and then I don't know how we're hanging on to d4.
Well, we have attack on e6.
Oh, true, the rook is there.
Yeah.
So if bishop takes d4, are you thinking rook takes maybe? Yeah. Bishop take, well, maybe we shouldn't even. We have to, yeah.
Although, well, maybe this is happening.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't allow that.
But I mean, I guess queen takes e6 is also possible. Which
Yeah.
might simplify things some.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But I mean, it's just because by playing the passive bishop d2, he allows Jacob to get what he wants, a nice calm position with zero counterplay. At least at the moment, white has no way of creating any major counterplay in a safe way because there's a grandmaster who had a saying, if you don't have a pawn lever in these kind of positions, like a pawn break, then you probably don't have a plan. And in this position, the only pawn break that white can consider would involve moving one of these guys. And that would probably not be good for the health of this guy. And now, as I mentioned, black has succeeded in creating what he wants. So white's pawns are split. The other pawn structure white could have gone for was this, but then he has a backward pawn on a half open file, and he'll be suffering for quite a bit to defend it. But okay, maybe this would not have been as bad because there's also the concept that it often takes more than one weakness to down a position, and so if the only weakness in white's position was that c pawn, he could probably defend it. Unfortunately, because it's already loosened his kingside structure, black could himself consider softening this up and now have two weaknesses to work against, the king and c pawn. But anyway, that's all theoretical stuff. So this happens here, and it's putting pressure. He's okay with exchanges.
Why
And
isn't
now the
Norm
deep.
taking one of those rooks?
I don't know. I think he probably figures that he needs to keep both rooks on to have counterplay, which doesn't seem to be the case. In fact, I think he would benefit from exchanging the majors, as many major pieces as he can. Because if it comes down to just the minor pieces, he might improve his chances to hold. But leaving the major pieces on board is actually worse for the person with these pawn weaknesses. Because if
Yeah.
the, and now it's just clear because the queen has gotten into the underbelly of White's position, and now, in addition to everything else, the queen is going to have to leave the d1 h5 diagonal, which means that the rook on d1 is dying. So, for example, check. Ouch.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the last game. Hopefully we save the best for last. So this is a classic matchup, these two guys. Nate Hoover and Dane Zagar have been playing for, it feels like ever, and they often have epic games as a result. So let's see how this one went. C4, E6, knight F3, D5. Dane pretty much uses the Queen's Gambit decline setup against most non-E4 openings. And like you, he's a fan of the Tatakoba. You know, this setup reminds me of, there was a famous Rubinstein game. Might have been Levy versus Rubinstein. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. But it kind of reminds me this setup that Dane is taking, and maybe we'll see fireworks similar to that. Dane's always up to these dirty tricks. So the idea, of course, is that if knight takes, then say hello to the little friend. So obviously he can't do that, so he plays g3. And now rook a8. And so Dane's idea, well, part of his idea is he doesn't want to, he didn't want to take on e5, the move before, because that would leave this guy weak after here, and then white is for choice in this position, with his rook already, especially if the exchange happens on c7. So that's the reason why Dane went for this seemingly artificial idea with queen h6, but it works. And Nathan is continuing to put pressure on Black's position. He's trying to take the bishop away, giving himself the bishop pair, and also removing the protector of the c7 square, which is the only square on the c file that white can use to penetrate into Black's position. So Dane decides to play rook c8 prophylactically. So if the exchange happens, he's already on the c file and white won't profit. So now we have some maneuvering going on where, if you go back here, this move wasn't a nothing move. It was to create space for the bishop to add pressure to e4. So it vacates f1, which is now taken by the bishop. which then comes to g2. So now we have pressure on e4, and Black needs to figure out what he's going to do about it. And Dane decides to play f5. So in a way, it's an economic defense. You're not tying down a piece, and it's also picking up space on the king side. But it's giving up e5. So e5 is now not defendable by a pawn, but maybe that doesn't matter as the game goes on. And in fact, it's funny because with b5, Dane is asking him, jump in on e5. The water's fine. And Nathan says niet. So, unfortunately for Nate, the knight on a5 might not be ideally placed. So he has to do something quickly, and that something turned out to be knight c6. And if you compare this position with what we had a couple of moves ago, I don't think it's controversial to say that Dane's got the better of the maneuvering battle at this point. So Nate decides to attack the queen side, soften things up, and now at least he has a6 as a target. And Dane, once more, is up to his tricks. So the knight on c6 has to consider its future, or present as the case may be. And Nate decides to attack the a6 pawn, allowing this small tactic with bishop g3. And now he's a pawn up. Yes, Black has the bishop and knight versus White's bishop pair, but more importantly, this pawn is missing, and that could be a problem after maybe Dane moves his kingside pawns forward and uses his rooks behind the pawns and then blasts through. So it's pretty critical now that Nathan either make hay on the queen side or find a way to shore up his king side. Wow. I dare say Nathan seems to have made some progress, and even more progress. Is there a tactic? Oh, no. The knight comes to d5. Okay. For a second, I thought that there was a tactic. Well, there is a tactic here, but Black doesn't have to play so badly. The idea being that there's a mate on that square. So bishop b3 was played instead, which threatens c7. And so Dane defends. Although, is rook c7 still working here?
It looks like it. Same idea as earlier with mate on f8.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing. So yeah, rook takes c7, rook takes c7. queen can't take because queen f8 mate. If bishop takes b3, then rook takes c8, obviously. So no, I don't see any good counterattacks.
So maybe they both missed this. Because now,
that's surprising, but yeah, you're right.
yeah, because now all of a sudden Black's position is now more comfortable. His knight is definitely, well, I should say definitely, but seems superior to White's bishop, and he's now ready to swing his pieces to the king side. And once, as long as he can make sure there's no mate on f8, Black seems to be doing fine here. Of course, that's a very big if. So now, what's the time situation? Hold on. Maybe we weren't being fair to the players. At this point, they've already gone way down in time. So there's like 21 minutes for Nate versus 2 minutes for Dane. And all this bullying that Nate was doing was with Dane having less than 3 minutes on the clock. And so he spent 2 minutes on this. Dane responded within like a minute and a half. And then that's the situation where, he actually spent a minute and some change before playing bishop d5.
Yeah, I'm still. Yeah, I mean, I think if he had more time, he would have seen it. But yeah, it definitely works. Rook takes c7 is yeah.
So, do you remember was it? There was a show, right? A TV show called Charmed. It seems as if Dane's campaign this month has definitely been charmed.
It totally has. Round one, he escaped with a draw. I mean, that was a ridiculous game where he could have lost. And then the next game, he definitely should have lost to Noah, and then he not only drew, but he won.
Yes. Unreal. So yeah, so now they're just playing on increment. Well, not fully just on increment, but um still this doesn't seem. I mean, rook a6 to me, unless there's some tactic based on f5, but if that's the case, I mean f4, sorry, or h4. I don't know. I might have preferred rook takes a6, intending this maybe. Get that rook out of the way. And then hope you don't get mated. But okay, so they're in time trouble, so I need to cut them some slack. And Dane is just tossing the kitchen sink at Nate, hoping he can come up with the goods. And here, maybe, but it's not working because I think it's not quick enough. I was thinking that maybe there was rook here, but then Dane could play this, which saves him a move, maybe, and then continues his checking spree. Although, what's going on here? Is it because Nate goes for this? Now, again, they're both low on time. And it's material even somehow. Oh, but Nate doesn't mind because he hopes to take the A pawn, I guess, which is why Dane doesn't agree to the exchange. And so Nate is taking a defense first posture, making sure the knight doesn't come into f4. And now Dane's this is going to hurt. So if he plays if he takes bishop takes e3, what is Dane's idea here?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it quite yet.
Okay, so he has one move of a threat. Uh, and he doesn't see it.
Yeah, because I'm like, how did this game end in one move?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's oh
No, yeah, I mean, like we said, what's funny is I mean, yeah, Dane is doing it.
oh my word.
Because yeah, I mean, King H2 and the game goes on. Black
Yeah,
Black can't really infiltrate, and not only that, White's up 2 pawns. What I kind of thought was going to happen was in this position, I thought Dane played Rook B8, so that after Rook takes A6 was what happened. I thought he was going to go Rook B1 and
yeah.
just try to play for some counterplay, and then like Rook
Yeah,
C6.
I thought this was
Yeah,
his idea, and then the only way to defend would be this, and then now you play e3, and this guy's gone.
and
Is
yeah,
what I
and if
thought he was playing for. Yeah.
yeah, and then if moves like Rook C6 after Rook B1, Rook C6, then there's like Knight B4, and then Rook takes C7, and it gets a bit messy. But
Hmm.
I think after Queen C8, now Black's threatening Knight D3, and I mean that's
Although
kind of
after this, sorry, after this, I think there's now this.
and if King H2, do we still have Knight E2?
I think we still have 92.
Oh well, now we have Queen. No, no, we can't do that. We have to watch out for F2. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you go queen here, then this is just winning.
What might happen though
Um,
is yeah, like Queen E3,
and it
Knight
goes queen
takes Rook,
e3.
Knight takes Rook
Yep.
takes.
Yeah. Knight takes.
But
Rook
is
takes.
But this
Takes.
isn't winning for Dane, is it? Or is that past E pawn
This
too
is
strong?
this is winning. That past e pawn is going to be the end of
I mean, we have a good A pawn too.
true, true. But
I'm seeing what game was it all over again with Robert and and Matthew with the two queens and the bishop and 120
yes.
moves. Yeah.
But yeah, I think knight here, and yeah, if queen, sorry, did you say queen? No, it said queen e3, right?
Yeah.
So if queen e3, then
Because this by the brief counting I'm doing is if black just decides to okay do that the trades and then queen takes f2 and then if they immediately decide to push and we push we don't have queen at the same time, and we queen would check. So that's all I
mhm.
see. I haven't calculated anything besides that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good
But
point. No, this is the an interesting end, and maybe let's see if there's anything else here. So, because I mean, I thought rook b8, sorry, rook b8 to rook b1, and then knight c6, and it seemed like um, let's see if there's better here. So,
oh yeah, there's just yeah there's just knight e2 not instead of knight d3. Oh wait, or is that the move we were
mhm.
looking at?
Yeah, 92 is the move we're looking at. So I'm trying to see if there's anything better for Dane here. Um,
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. But Nate Dane was definitely the one pushing towards the end, so
Yeah,
it makes some sense, especially under time trouble, that Nate blundered it. Obviously, you wouldn't expect it from a strong player, but it makes it somewhat understandable.
yes. Yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. So we have some interesting games. I mean, I still have well, different flavors, right? So the Eddie game was a good demonstration of excellent prep and understanding the ideas behind your prep. Um, Miles showed excellent political positional understanding and then benefited from tactical errors. Jacob's game I liked a lot as a good example of a nice minority attack for Black. I think he played it pretty well, and when the opportunities arose later, because of the pressure was putting on White's position, he was able to break through with his queen and then was tactically alert enough to see h5 at the end. Um, and I think there's one more game. Maybe look at that. Nathan's game against Jules, which that's true. Nathan was probably playing a simul, as he often does, right?
Yeah.
So this chess openings can be such chameleons. So this started off as if it was going to go towards Yubaba London, and now it's a position from, I believe this would be called a Pribal. And I don't know that I like Bishop D3. I don't think it's necessary. Maybe just develop normally. And okay, there is potentially a problem if B5 is coming, I guess. But if knight f3, just continuing development, if b5 happens, somehow I think this should be fine.
Yeah.
For white, sorry. You're just in time to deal with the counterattack and create a wedge, and then I think Jules is better there. But Bishop d3 seems like a waste of time, and now that loses the pawn, and loses the pawn in a way that Nate isn't going to get punished, at least not obviously. And now not only does Nate have an extra pawn, he also has the better pawn structure, but she has better development. So let's see if she can put her development to good use. Row. Okay, that was just hanging. Oh yeah, I guess it was just hanging, and there was no good way to defend it, I suppose. Okay, so f3. And slowly but surely, Nathan is getting his pieces into the game. And that comes with check. And now it seems as if this is going to be... Okay, so yeah, knight. Rook a2, so it's hard because it's not clear how you get compensation for those two pawns. But by playing rook a2, allowed exchange, now the other rook comes in, and yeah, Black's position is a lot better here. Third pawn.
She made the game go on long enough to cause Nathan some headaches for playing 2 games at once.
Yes. So actually, she should be recorded in the books as having um, made an assist for Dane Zagar, because probably um, her holding off was what contributed to Nathan's time trouble in his game against Dane.
Yeah.
What's the fastest mate from here? I think 2 moves. I think 2 moves would be correct. But I don't know
Yeah,
if Queen E4 is the fastest. Maybe it is. Let's see. I don't think Queen E4 is the fastest. I mean, now I'm just looking for style plays. But I think Queen C4 forces mate into.
the problem is there's a problem if you try to look for the fastest mate. So if you go back a move where the queen was on E1 and the king is on in this position, my mate in 2 is queen B1, and then the king has to go to A3 and then queen A5 mate.
Yes.
That's the quickest
That's
mate.
another
But
one.
if you think, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to the fastest mate, and for some reason you play queen B2, then it's stalemate. So
Yes.
sometimes don't even look for the fastest mate.
In general, my advice to folks is, if you're going to get to mate, unless you're solving a problem like a test problem, whatever that quantifies you need to get, just take whatever time it takes to get there without allowing stalemate. And even if it means moving the queens to the side of the moving, so maybe you're not sure, move this guy here, right? They play somewhere else. You move this one here, right? Keep as far away from the king, and then do this business. If it means you avoid doing the stalemate. But yeah, I just thought I was just curious to see if Queen E4 was the quickest mate, and I think she could have drawn it out by a couple more moves. At least one move, maybe. I think this draws it out one more move. Probably. Yeah. No. Here. There you go. So she gets one more move in, and then after this, then here. Anyway, so I think we're done with the games. Anyone I missed?
Nope, that's all 9.
All right.
And now Dane, I don't know what his live rating will be. Like they have this new US chess rating system, and a new, just kind of they revamped the whole page where you see your rating and all of your profile and everything like that. And it shows his last tournament was end of November, so that just doesn't seem right. But if that, okay, that's obviously even excluding the November Thursday nighter, which I thought he played, but yeah. Anyways, it shows his live rating as 2187. And let's just say that's correct, even though it probably isn't. He drew Matthew, so lose a few points for that, and then he beat Noah, gain a couple, beat Nathan, gain a few. So I don't. It's really tough to say whether he'll be a master or not without knowing his live rating. So we'll. If he plays next week and doesn't withdraw, then he probably hasn't got it. But maybe Dane wouldn't be someone to withdraw from a tournament midway through. But it isn't exactly an action quad where it's pretty much strictly forbidden.
Yes. No, I think he's going to get there eventually. But this month has just been wowee. It's like every single game this month has been an adventure, and not the kind of adventure he necessarily wants, but he'll take it, I'm sure, if it means he comes away with the maximum points. That's
Yeah,
just that's just crazy.
it is.
Um,
And before we end the stream, I'm going to mention our couple sponsors, and then our Discord. Make sure to check out the club Discord if you want to post puzzles or just talk to other members, shoot the breeze. You can check out the link in the description for our Discord. And then thanks to Chess Goals and Matt Jensen, and you can save some precious dollars if you use the coupon code Castle on the Chess Goals website. And then our other sponsor is Webeccentric. You can read that down in the description, but Webeccentric, and this is kind of sponsored by Johnny. And not only does he have his own small business where he helps with tailored digital solutions and everything you can see there, but he also has a merch store um, where you can get hats and hoodies and like a yoga mat and coffee cups with all sorts of different logos. Once it starts to get warmer, I'll put on my Team Scandy shirt again. But yeah, just make sure to check out the different merch options there. And with that, we will see you all next week. Well, actually, we won't see next week because next week is Christmas and we will not be doing Christmas. And the week after that is January 1st, which is New Year's. So we'll be in touch, but I think we'll have a New Year stream, but that's still touch and go. So we'll see about that. But
okay.
with that, we'll see you all when we next see you, and we'll update you on whatever December Thursday nighter results hold. So see you guys.